Gremlins was a sci-fi, comedy, horror, action blend of almost every genre imaginable film in 1984. It revolved around a teenager whose father gets him a new pet for Christmas, an adorable as fuck fictional creature known as a Mogwai, who they named Gizmo. Water multiplies the Mogwai, food after midnight transforms them into gremlins, and all hell breaks loose. It was a terrific blend of just about every genre imaginable, and would spawn a sequel 6 years later, Gremlins 2: The New Batch. This installment toned down the violence and certainly focused more on the cartoony, comedic element, but it was a strong effort. It was at this time that a Gremlins video game was released on the NES, and since it was current, Sunsoft decided to base it off of the sequel, so we got Gremlins 2: The New Batch on NES, even though it wasn't a direct sequel to a previous game. You control Gizmo in an overhead pseudo 3D world in an effort to take out the Gremlins. The stages are based on locations in the movie, even though the majority of the film takes place in one building. There's a decent variety of scenery. They also incorporate some cutscenes straight from the film into the game's storyline, and include some of the unique gremlins that they developed in the movie. Most of the enemies aren't even gremlins. There's random shit like rats, spiders, there's even an attack of the killer tomatoes. But you couldn't expect the game to be non-stop gremlins without it getting old. So the gremlins themselves are generously spaced out to boss battles and the occasional appearance as a regular enemy throughout the game. You can move in 6 directions, which enhances the 3D feel a lot more than the grid-like 4 directions that normally encompass an overhead game. You get different weapons as the game goes on. You start with the weakest one, a goddamn tomato, and after beating certain stages, you get an upgrade. You can also enhance the weapon you already have by visiting shops. Each level has one shop owned by the old man who originally owned Gizmo, although I don't know why he's selling items to Gizmo. If he really had any compassion for his former pet, you'd think he'd just lend the shit to him and assist in any way he could in a life or death situation. Plus in the sequel, he's dead. So you pick up these crystal orbs that enemies drop after you kill them. They're worth 20 each. At the shop, you can buy a balloon for 10 crystals, which will save you some health if you fall down a pit, and you can carry yourself past the danger zone for a bit. You also start the game with one of these babies. There's a heart bottle for 50 crystals. This restores a full heart to your health bar. You start out with 3 and you max out at 4, although that's actually 8 full hit points, because you only lose half a heart from each hit, which is represented on screen as a throbbing heart instead of a half heart. That was a weird decision. You can also buy an extra heart to add to your max for 100 crystals, but this will only last for the duration of the stage. The power canister costs 50 crystals, and this is the weapon enhancer I mentioned earlier, but you lose its effect if you die. Last but not least is the Gizmo doll for 100 crystals, which gives you an extra life. There are 2 things about these shops that are annoying. Number 1, you're only offered 3 items at a time, so if you're in need of some health or an extra life or whatever, they may not even be there. And number 2, you can only buy 1 item in each stage. That's it, buy 1 item and get the hell out of my shop until tomorrow. The game is very generous with crystals, and the shop sits at about the halfway point of each stage, so you should have more than enough to buy any item in the shop. So it sounds like the game developers saw this as a balancing act to keep you from over-farming on items, but they could have just made the crystals harder to come by, or not make them worth as much, or something. And when you die, you lose all your crystals, so you should be rewarded for surviving and stocking up crystals by being able to buy as much as you want, instead of being stuck with all the extra income. What a waste. Anyway, there are other items you can pick up during the game. Light bulbs wipe out all the enemies on screen. The stopwatch temporarily freezes all the enemies on screen, although they can still harm you via contact. And the pogo stick doubles as temporary invincibility and short-term transportation. The game looks and sounds great. The music is very well produced, and the characters are rendered and animated well. The cutscenes in particular look very good, and they're even cinematographically accurate. It actually kind of makes me want to shut the game off and watch the movie. The controls are generally smooth and fluid, although there are a couple of issues. The one that really goes up my ass sideways is jumping over a pit to the north. I often find myself not gauging the proper time to jump, and I either undershoot by jumping too early or walk right off the fucking edge. Retreating and turning quickly to attack is tricky too, but the only fix to that I can think of is an auto-aim function, which would just make the combat aspect of the game a mindless button mash. This isn't the only overhead game to suffer from this, it's really just frustration that comes with the territory, so I can't really nitpick it too much. One area I will nitpick though is when you attack during mid-jump. You'll stop dead in your tracks and drop straight down from where you are. So you can forget about firing at an enemy on the other side of a pit while you're jumping over it, unless you want to fall down the pit. One good thing about pitfalls in this game that doesn't exist in any other game that I can think of off the top of my head is how you won't die from falling down a pit. You'll just lose a hit point and be transported back before the pit, unless you have a balloon and you don't lose a hit point at all. Another generosity is the fact that you don't have to start at the beginning of the stage after you die. You'll respawn until you get a game over. So lives are basically health, but you only start with one life, so you better rack up on those. You also get unlimited continues, and at that point you do have to start at the beginning of the stage, but that's more than fair. Although they jip you on the boss battles, each stage is broken off into 2 sub-levels, and they count the boss battle as the 3rd sub-level of the stage, and when you die and continue, you can pick up on the last sub-level where you were at, unless it's the boss level. The game also doesn't throw you a freaking bone when advancing through sub-levels. Your health doesn't regenerate. It's not the biggest ripoff in the world, you're technically still in the same stage, but once you get to the end of an area, it really gives off the feel that you've completed a stage and deserve a refill. At least you get your infinite continues, plus a password system if you'd like to pick back up another day. Gremlins 2 is a solid, fun, and I'd say underrated game. It's probably not for everyone. I can see how some people might find it nauseating and difficult toward the end, but even though it has its flaws, it's one of those games that you find yourself wanting to progress through anyway. It's fairly addicting. So we start out with a cutscene of Gizmo imprisoned at the Clamp building, which by a glorious coincidence is the same building Billy, his dear friend from the first movie, works at. Billy discovers Gizmo, unlocks the cage, gives him the thumbs up saying, "You can go free now, but you're on your own." Okay, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but NES games usually try to get to the point and not overload you on backstory. So even though this has the 3D vibe, the game is very linear. There are nooks and crannies, and once in a while a fork in the road, but in general there's no need for me to point out what direction you need to take. You'll start out by facing off with some rats that scurry around. Keep your distance and take them out with your tomato. It's short range, so you can't keep a lot of distance here. Then you'll come across giant tomatoes, so you'll have to fight fire with fire and throw your tomatoes at the tomatoes. They take a few hits, so you might have to retreat. Thankfully in this game, enemies don't respawn. Or you can shift to the side, because they only travel in a straight line. Then you've got some bats. They tend to hover around, but do stay in the same vicinity. Head north at the end of the hallway to hit up the shop. You can either buy a balloon, a heart bottle, or a Gizmo doll. I tend to always lean toward the extra life, but it's up to you. Head back down after exiting the shop, and it's all rats, bats, and other snacks on your way to the elevator and the second segment of Stage 1. Early on, you'll encounter these spiders. They're easy enough to kill, but once they die, their offspring pops out and shuffles around. Fire at will and get them out of your way. Kill all this shit from the safety of across the way. The bats should even mind their own beeswax from the other side as you kill them. In the next segment, you can do the same against these spiders. Get behind the wall and throw a tomato straight through it to kill the arachnids and their babies. There's a shop on the upper right hand side of this area. You get the option of a Gizmo doll, balloon, or maximum heart. Definitely go with the doll here if you can. You're almost at the end of the stage. The extra heart will be gone once you're done. All that stands in your way at this point are some floating grate platforms. Make sure you time your jumps well, and some bats. When you get to the end, which is at Billy's desk, you'll grab the match, your new weapon. No boss battle this time. You'll get a cutscene of Gizmo getting some water on him, which causes him to multiply into the dickhead Mogwai Patrol, who throw Gizmo into the ventilation duct, which is where the second stage takes place. You'll notice the spark that the match fires off is similar in range to the tomato, although it's a little bit longer, so that's a plus. Early on, you've got these spiked balls that shift from side to side. Time your advancement so you slip past them. These bombs will quickly swing their way towards you before exploding, so keep a safe distance before taking them out. They'll explode when you destroy them too. This stage is a bit of a pain in the nuts due to the narrowness of it all. Goddamn the dickhead Mogwai Patrol. Head right at the end of the corridor and time your jumps over the electric walls and the pit so you don't get caught between the spiked balls and the walls. At the next T intersection, head left and you'll hit a shop with a heart bottle, a balloon, and a power canister. It's up to you, but if you're in good health, I say grab the canister and upgrade your weapon to a spread shot. Then head back and go right at the T you came from, and you'll run into a line of spiders and spiked balls. Stay back behind the balls as you murder the spiders, and advance after you've disposed of the babies. After that, it's just some more spiked balls in between electric barriers. Time your jumps well, and the end is just ahead. Early in the second portion of the stage, you'll encounter a gremlin hovering around via chopper blades. I guess they've eaten after midnight now, despite no cutscene to showcase this important part of the sequence. Keep your distance and attack. Having spread shot helps taking this guy out. Jump between the spikes and pits, landing in the safe spots. This is a recurring theme in this stage, and you'll encounter the smoking gremlin. Gremlins must also be part dragon because the cigarettes conjure up fireballs. Wait for him to pause his attacks briefly and jump diagonally towards him and fire relentlessly. You'll then meet up with this gremlin that Popcorn's about. After leaving beside him, fire relentlessly and retreat a bit if you have to. Right after is another new gremlin, this green douche on a skateboard. First, watch the spiked ball and quickly jump across the platform when the coast is clear. Then stay here and attack the prick as he appears and retreats. Then you'll hop on this floating platform and come under attack by these hovering gremlins. They can be a pain, but if you stay on the platform, you'll have a better chance at swatting them down without repercussions. Then you'll find this floating platform that's complicated by the spiked ball. I don't know what to say here other than time this shit absolutely perfectly. Wait for the right time to jump, and if the ball isn't in front of you, don't bother and wait. Thankfully, there's no time limit to rush you. Next, there's another smoking gremlin in this tight area. It's much tougher to kill here, so I say fuck it. Try to evade his fire breath and maneuver your way between the bullshit. Right after that is a shop with a gizmo doll, extra heart, or power canister. Since you've hopefully maintained the canister earlier, now is a good time for an extra life. There'll be 2 skateboarding gremlins ahead. Try to stay left so you only lure out one at a time. Try to keep your distance and avoid his attack of balls. Then do the same to the next one. Hop across this platform to lure out the popcorning gremlin, and hop back so you can kill him from across the way. These pipes are not as easy as they seem. They look like just part of the floor, but you actually can't pass them. So wait for openings to slip between them and the spiked balls, and soon after is the end, and you'll run into your first boss battle, a gremlin. He simply hops from one spot to another, and lashes out every once in a while. Stay behind him, or to the side to avoid his swipes. Take your shots when you don't feel threatened, particularly when he pauses. He's pretty easy, so you shouldn't have much trouble taking him down, and you'll acquire your next weapon, the paperclip, which fires off in longer range than the match, and also fires in spread shot when upgraded. No cutscene this time, horse shit. You'll run into these claws that pop out of the ground and toss deadly balls. Fire as soon as you see them to avoid this shit, and make sure this one here in particular is killed so it doesn't throw balls at you when you're trying to jump this platform. These balls and chains are a pain in the dick too, with the chain itself causing harm to you, not just the balls. So be sure to jump over it when you pass between and it catches up to you. The shop actually appears relatively early in this stage, up in this corner here, and you're offered a heart bottle, balloon, or power canister. Take what you need and move on. These weird looking things on the platform across the way fire off projectiles when you get close enough, so get to the edge and do a fake out jump to lure their attack. Then hop on the platform and wipe them out when in transit. Then you'll have a difficult jump to nail here, avoiding the swinging spiked ball and reaching the platform on the other side. Then you've got these donut tossing gremlins. Just run past them and evade the donuts. Now, even though you just came off of a green walking surface, don't let that fool you here. They're walls in this case, so aim for the blue portion in the center. Now you're in a graveyard, although you're really just in the TV studio if you notice the cameras and lights throughout. But there are actual vampire bats. Kill them along with the claws that pop out from as far away as you can. Hopefully you've got your spread shot to get better angles, and the end is just ahead. The second half of the stage is riddled with conveyor belts, so you know damn well this is going to be a pain in the vagina. Early on, you've got this ball and chain in front of this narrow belt that rotates to the left and leads to this lava bath. You have to leap across it to minimize the possibility of being swept away. Try to stay to the right as much as possible and kill the popcorn and gremlin once you land in the safe zone. Hop left and scale the platforms this way. Then you've got to hop from belt to belt. Keep jumping against the wall as you shift over. Then you've got to get past this ball and chain / lava pit. Try to jump over the chain and avoid the ball altogether. Then you've got this moving platform that rides under an electrical current. You have to jump over it and quickly jump onto the next platform or you'll ride back into the current. Here you'll meet some retarded gremlins. Just stand back and wipe them out easily. Soon after is a shop with a gizmo doll, extra heart, and power canister. Grab what you will and move on. Weave your way between the spiked balls. They stay on a vertical line, and do a double jump to get by the belt. And now you have 2 long belts separated by pits and lava. The first one pushes towards you, and the second pulls you forward. Like the previous instances where you have to endure these bastards, keep jumping as you move and don't stay on the belts for hardly any period of time, and head upward on the second belt. After that, it's a string of 3 small belts in a lava pit. Leap across each of them carefully, and it's on to the boss battle, the electric gremlin. He shifts around the room, throwing a ball of electricity that splits off into 4 other smaller balls that all move diagonally. Although he attacks quite a bit and moves around pretty much everywhere, he's not terribly quick, and his electric balls don't have a lot of range. So as long as you keep a fair distance and be fleet of foot, you should be able to evade his attacks, especially if you have the spread shot. It'll strengthen your chances of a clean hit immensely. After taking him down, you'll get the pencil bow, although along with a brief cutscene depicting Billy capturing the electric gremlin. If you've seen the movie, you'll know where this is going. As far as the new weapon is concerned, the bow has awesome range, and its enhancement is a ridiculous spread shot of 5 pencils, so this will come in handy. At the beginning of Stage 4, you'll meet the weirdo gremlin that spins around flinging top hats. Wait for him to momentarily pause and then attack him, or if you have the spread shot, just unload on him. Here you've got, are you kidding me, a spiked ball and chain with an electrical current wall out front where the only means of walking are 2 conveyor belts. Fuck me, why weren't these damn belts a gimmick in only the previous stage? Do a double jump as quickly as possible and hug the wall against the left. Then quickly jump to the next one as the chain passes by. Then you'll reach a fork where you can go north or continue east. Staying east is riddled with electrical currents, pits, and spikes. I don't recommend it. Up north is the way to go. There's really not much to compete with, just a handful of gremlins we've seen several times over, and there's a shop with the gizmo doll, extra heart, and power canister. Buy whatever suits you and move on. Carefully jump across these conveyor belts and quickly dispatch the hovering gremlin. After that, you've got a couple more of these Mad Hatter gremlins, and then this jump is a bitch. You've got to let the belt take you to the edge of the spikes and time your diagonal jump just right. Down the home stretch is a few of these electric current jumps you have to make on conveyor belts. Take your time, it's not a race. On the second series, a gremlin claw will pop out of the ground. Hop onto the stationary floor on the side here and smoke it out from here before moving on. And there's one more on the last series of jumps right before you reach the end. The second half of the stage has, oh great, more fucking conveyor belts. Awesome. Time your jumps over the currents and make your jumps quick. Then do the same down here. Hug the southern wall so you don't take any lava baths, and when you get here, you're gonna have to reposition yourself and fire at this asshole. But you also have to move to keep yourself on the belt. It's tricky as shit. So is this jump right after, where you have to run up a slew of belts shifting sideways while hugging the left wall so you don't hit the ball and chain. Not to mention not jumping too late and getting your ass melted. Timing has to be immaculate here, so good luck. After jumping across these platforms, kill the bat gremlin right away. I'm really surprised this bastard didn't end up being a boss battle. I thought it was one of the more interesting and intimidating gremlins of the movie, but oh well. Use this current as a shield while you take out this guy. Then you're going to have to use the jump over the chain routine here in this narrow gap as you pass the ball and chain. Then make a right-hand turn at the belts here to hit up the shop. There's a heart bottle, a balloon, and a power canister. The choice is yours. This is a weird spot as you wait for this moving platform to give you a ride. A spiked wall will bounce back and forth across the way. Jump over it and blast this guy out of your way. And once you get an opening, jump down and hug the southern wall. Down the home stretch is a couple of ball and chains. Kill the shit in front of you as you jump over the chain, and then move on. The elevator to the boss battle is just ahead. This is the mohawked leader of the Dickhead Mogwai Patrol, now a gremlin. He'll slide around and fire a gun straight ahead. It's quite basic. You really want to stay behind him or to the side to avoid his gunfire. It would be easy as shit if it weren't complicated by the spikes on the ground. It really limits your mobility, as you'll want to be evasive when he bounces around and tries to make contact with you. Keep up this pattern until he's dead, and you'll acquire the fire bow, which is basically an upgraded version of the regular bow, but with an explosion at the end that can damage anything in the nearby area of the target. And with the enhancement, it sends deadly tornadoes about on top of its massive explosion. The beginning of Stage 5 has, you guessed it, more goddamn conveyor belts. Fuck me sideways. Shoot down the bastards that float around and jump across the belts carefully not to slip off the edge. Slip by the ball and chain and head down the conveyor belt. Blast what's in your way and dangle around near the edge so you can wipe out what's in front of you, giving you a better jump across the pit. And that includes fake jumping across to bait this dickhead into firing itself off at you. Careful jumping across these belts. When getting on this one, run, don't jump onto the edge as it pushes you backwards. You'll need to be as close to the edge as you can before you jump, then hug the wall as you proceed. Here you'll have to jump from a conveyor belt pushing you backwards onto a floating platform that shifts under electrical currents, giving you a narrow space to jump onto a platform with 2 ball and chain swinging. This is madness. You pretty much have to jump like a maniac into the right spots. Try to stay center at the end to get between them and jump over the chains if they swing at you. You'd think standing behind this thing would be solid protection from the Mad Hatter Gremlin on the other side, but the hats go right through this shit, and your attacks are blocked. What bullshit. So you might as well take him head on. Just make sure you wait for him to stop momentarily. A shop is just ahead. You've got a power canister, balloon, and gizmo doll. In a perfect world, you already have the enhancement, so you'll only want the gizmo doll here, but it doesn't always work that way, so grab what you desire. The home stretch is next, but boy is it a hell of a stretch. First, jump over this thing as it fires out, and use this side to get across as there's a couple safe stationary platforms along the way. Then jump from here to the belt to the moving platform on time, over the current, and blast this bitch on your way to the next belt. You have no time to rest even when you get across. Then you have to immediately jump across the lava from belt to belt, and you'll reach the end and the final boss, the Spider Gremlin. As tricky as it is, it's a pretty simple pattern. He'll shift from side to side, then drop down in an attempt to trap you and shift from side to side again while firing off some orbs. When it's away from you, you want to stay in the center and give it some headshots. When it's about to drop down towards you, switch over to the side and get between its front and side legs, giving you more room to maneuver back and forth as it shifts. When it backs up, repeat the process. It's all easier said than done, but still doable. Eventually you'll take him out and get a cutscene which mirrors the end of the movie. Spoiler alert, Billy uses the electric gremlin stored in the phone to wipe out all the gremlins down below, although they didn't include the fact that they doused the entire clan of monsters in water to get the desired effect, but whatever. The gremlins are dead, everyone lives happily ever after, and the credits roll, putting an end to the Gremlins story arc. And that wraps up this edition of Aqualung's Game Reviews. See you next time.